Today I have several items of good news to share with the citizens and residents of St. Kitts and Nevis. St. Kitts and Nevis continues to do well, and in so doing, the realm of opportunities to our people is expanding. Objective observers and independent analysts continue to rate St. Kitts and Nevis among the best performing countries of the world and several indices. For the period January to March 2018, the central government recorded fiscal surpluses on the following accounts: recurrent account 36 million, overall balance 23.3 million, and the primary balance of 27.1 million. The recurrent, overall, and primary surpluses were notably above their performances for the corresponding period of 2017 by 68.8%, 101.4%, and 77.8% respectively. In a nutshell, the first quarter of 2018 has returned remarkable results relative to the corresponding period of 2017. The growth in revenue, particularly from the proceeds derived from the Citizenship by Investment program, contributed to the outturn. The second area I wish to focus on is our Citizenship by Investment program. Our Citizenship by Investment program has over the last 6 months received many accolades. Moreover, the market acceptance of our program has consistently ranked our federation as having one of the most trusted programs in the world. Just recently, one of the better-known advisors and providers of immigration and residence advice, Henley and Partners, ranked our Citizenship by Investment program as the number one in the Eastern Caribbean in their passport index. Additionally, our passport has been ranked number 24 in the world. For us to be in the top global ranking is a remarkable achievement for a program damaged by a FinCEN advisory in May 2014 and the loss of our visa-free access to Canada 6 months later in November 2014. It is common knowledge that all these are adverse consequences of the maladministration of the former regime. In 2017, Nomad Passport Index ranked our passport as number 1 in the OECS and number 50 in the world. Today, we are being ranked number 24 in the world, albeit by another entity. Such an outstanding rating indicates that we continue to build on prior successes. For example, we were recognized for having the world's most innovative investment migration program by the organizers of the Russian Global Citizens Award ceremony in 2017. Secondly, we hosted well over 300 participants at the Caribbean Investment Summit here in St. Kitts and Nevis over the period 17th and 18th May 2018. Our CIU staff, headed by Mr. Lescan, deserves commendation. The participants rated our summit as the best one ever to date. Thirdly, receiving strong market acceptance of our Hurricane Relief Fund, which to date has received over 1,200 applications up to April 2018. Over the next 6 months, these will be processed and a determination made as to how many were successful. Success occurs where an application succeeds at the rigorous multi-tiered due diligence processes and the applicants and/or their agents subsequently wire payments to satisfy their obligations. When these stats are available, we shall provide more information on the outcome of the HRF, as that fund was called. The third area of good news for our country is that the St. Kitts Nevis and Gwilla National Bank Group of Companies Limited, the leading bank in both St. Kitts and Nevis and the Eastern Caribbean Currency Union, is to hold its annual general meeting on Thursday, May 31st. I want to commend the board of directors, the staff, and the large customer base of the National Bank Group on another successful year. The National Bank Group is reporting net income of over $39.5 million for 2017, far in excess of the reported $28.4 million in 2016. Net income is up 38% over the previous year, and the bank's asset base grew by over $100 million from $3.7 billion in 2016 to easy $3.8 billion in 2017. Liquidity of the bank remains strong, and the National Bank Group, including the National Insurance and National Trust, are, in our view, outstanding showpieces of indigenous efforts in support of nation building. I want to turn to the matter of severance payments, and there again we have good news for workers. The former Douglas regime failed to properly manage the severance payment fund, and in order to ingratiate itself to workers, the former administration introduced what it called a long-service gratuity award for employees. The former administration, true to form, did not think this scheme through properly. Regrettably, no new source of funding was provided to finance the scheme. Unfortunately, the proceeds of an already underfinanced severance fund was burdened with obligations to cater for the long service gratuity award. The consequence, the fund was hemorrhaged. When we came to office, hundreds of workers were, in a manner of speaking, waiting in long lines to be paid, and the fund was illiquid or insolvent. Over time, my government succeeded in reducing this long queue of persons waiting to be paid. Permanent Secretary Bishop Ron Collins advised me that we are current, except for cases being actively investigated, including those on which a legal opinion is pending from the Attorney General's office. For the period March to April, the sum of just over $1 million is being paid out to persons severed. Thanks to our administration, the long wait for payments is now a thing of the past. Claims are being processed regularly as and when necessary. Furthermore, we have approached an actuary to do an evaluation of the severance fund. This will lead to prudential standards being observed. It means the tomorrow for our workers will be more secure than it is today. This indeed is good news for workers all over our country because our people are our greatest assets. The security of their earnings and terminal benefits is critical to the confidence of our workers. Actuarial advice is also being sought on how best we can do justice to the non-establishment workers who suffered badly under the former regime. The rejected regime victimized the non-establishment workers every year since 2007, when it failed to keep its word to regularize their status vis-à-vis pensionable benefits. Worse yet, The former regime stopped their usual Christmas payment, averaging around 2% of their annual earnings. While we await the advice of the actuaries to complete the assignment, as a measure of good faith, we have committed to pay the 2% benefit should the assignment remain incomplete by year-end. I have good news for those who are in arrears with respect to their property tax. Of course, we depend on timely compliance by entities with their tax obligation to satisfy government commitments. The property tax compliance rate has been less than desirable. As a result, our Cabinet has approved the recommendation for a property tax amnesty to be effected from June 1st, 2018 for an initial period of about 1 month. I want then to urge all taxpayers in arrears to take note and observe the limited time to make a settlement. We are of the view that a property tax amnesty can be a useful tool to supplement our compliance strategy. By this tax amnesty, we give opportunities for delinquent taxpayers to become current with their obligations. We create an easement or facilitation, if you will, by reducing or waiving interest and/or penalties associated with these arrears. Many countries around the world have used tax amnesties as a fiscal tool to raise additional tax revenues without increasing taxes. This amnesty is a limited time opportunity for individuals and businesses to pay all past due taxes and $100 to cover all past penalties and interest where those penalties exceeded that amount. In addition, persons or entities that have unregistered properties or properties that have been upgraded can, during this amnesty period of June, report this information to the department without being charged any interest or penalties. Again, if you are unregistered for property taxes or you have upgraded properties, you can, during the amnesty period, which takes effect from the 1st of June, report this information to the department without suffering any interest or penalties. The Comptroller of Inland Revenue is here should there be further interest in how the amnesty will work. What happens at the end of the 1-month amnesty period? The 10% late payment penalty and interest will be imposed on all property tax accounts which still remain unpaid. This is, of course, in accordance with the law. There's a penalty for late payment, and that will then be revived at the end of the amnesty period. The seventh area of good news relates to the fact that the European Union has confirmed that St. Kitts and Nevis is a jurisdiction which cooperates on tax matters. At our last press conference here, the media raised attention to the blacklisting of St. Kitts and Nevis as a non-cooperative tax jurisdiction by the Code of Conduct Group of the Economic and Financial Council of the European Union. I am pleased to report that on May 25, 2018, the Council removed St. Kitts and Nevis from the European Union's list of non-cooperative tax jurisdictions. Our Team Unity government remains committed to remedy any lingering concerns. We now have to sustain our commitments to preserve our removal from the so-called list of non-cooperative jurisdictions. Commendations are due to Mrs. Hilary Hazel and Mrs. Sylvia Manning Guns of the Federal Ministry of Finance, and of course, Ms. Heidi Lynn Sutton of the Financial Service Regulatory Commission and Nevis for excellent work and leadership on this matter. We also want to commend the efforts of our own Ministry of Foreign Affairs and our office in Brussels. I turn now to the enthusiastic support that we have had with respect to the announcement of the $40 million economic stimulus, which starts from the 1st June. All government employees, for the record, whether they be teachers, policemen, Defense Force officers, or a cleaner, right up to the top level of permanent secretaries, can apply to access financing under this program. None then is excluded. The determination, of course, will be a banking decision made taking into account one's ability to pay, among other criteria. I invite as many persons who need to pay for their land, to add to their home, to upgrade or renovate their home, or buy a property, or build a brand new home, to submit their applications to access financing through the Development Bank. $30 million have been set aside for this property ownership program, which we are incentivizing for government employees. We have also allocated the sum of $2 million to an agricultural fund. The farming and fishing communities are encouraged in particular to apply for loan financing. And of course, our small entrepreneurs are not left out, in that we have also set aside the sum of $8 million to support local entrepreneurship. One would recall that we have so far set aside and provided some $50 million plus of support, and over 650 small and medium-sized businesses have benefited from that program dubbed the Fresh Start. Among them are fishers and farmers, shopkeepers, taximen, and professionals. Lawyers have been able to set up their practices by approaching the Fresh Start to get the necessary wherewithal to move forward. My government met with the Chamber of Industry and Commerce on May 11, 2018, and we had very productive discussions about a wide range of socio-economic issues. One of the matters discussed was the matter of national security, and the Chamber of Industry and Commerce had proposed to the government that it consider adding new, or rather additional support to the Office of the Director of Public Prosecution. We have taken that on board, and I'm pleased to report that 2 additional lawyers have been assigned to the Office of the Director of Public Prosecution. I'm advised that one will assist with criminal matters on the island of Nevis, and the other will assist with such matters on the island of St. Kitts. We are, of course, to pursue a series of roundtable discussions with the Chamber as a prelude to the national consultation on the economy. That consultation will take place later this year. We want to thank the Chamber's leadership for the excellent discussions we had on a wide range of matters, and to assure them that we have taken some and many of the considerations, suggestions, and proposals on board, and many of them have already been actioned. When we get to the round table in June, July, thereabouts, further details will be provided. It's important that I make mention of the fact that St. Kitts and Nevis will host the first phase of Exercise Trade Winds 2018, which is being directed by the United States Southern Command over the period June 4th to the 12th of this year. The overarching aim of the exercise is to improve the cooperation of partner nations in responding to security threats and disasters in accordance with regional treaties and security assistance, particularly as they relate to the CBSI, the Caribbean Basin Security Initiative. TradeWinds 2018 will enhance our capacity to cooperate and respond to what has been dubbed as 21st century threats on land and on sea, and to provide humanitarian and disaster relief. Well over 300 military, law enforcement, and civilian personnel coming from the RSS member states, the wider CARICOM region, the Dominican Republic, the USA, the French Armed Services or Armed Forces, the United Kingdom, and Canada Armed Forces will be present in St. Kitts and Nevis over this period starting next week. Some 20 countries are participating in the TradeWinds exercise for 2018, and we are of course glad to pay host to that large number of visitors to our shore. We welcome these security personnel and their associates to our Federation, and we pray for the peace and safety of all who reside here and those who will visit. The opening ceremony for this event will take place at Monday, 4th June at 0900 hours, and all are invited to Warner Park Cricket Stadium for this event. It is not a public holiday, however. So on Monday, the 4th June at 9 a.m., 0900 hours in military language, the opening ceremony will take place at the Warner Park Cricket Stadium, and all are invited, including the friends of the media. I am advised that 5 schools will be painted as part of a community outreach efforts by those participating in TradeWinds 2018. The lucky schools are Beach Allen Primary, Violet Petty Primary, Joshua Obadiah Williams Primary, Sandy Point Primary, and the Gingerland Secondary School. In Nevis, the TradeWinds team will also paint the Alexander Hamilton Museum and the Brown Hill Health Center. Speaking of security, I want to advise that we have about 50 vacancies across our security forces for recruit-level personnel. The national public would be aware that recently we brought in a good number of recruits from St. Vincent and Grenada, and we have added or were able to secure about 20 local persons to be part of an upcoming training exercise which should begin, I think, next week. There are more vacancies which are there, and I gather we are still looking for about another 20 male police officers at the recruit level. We hope that more of our young men would want to participate in law enforcement and stand up to protect the law, to serve and protect their nation and their communities. Over the next few weeks, we will also be engaging about 12 new persons recruits at the fire department for training. And these, of course, will be done as part of the STEP program outreach to provide sustainable employment to our people. At the last press conference, the media asked a number of questions, including 1. When will the Permanent Secretary of Health be named? I am pleased to advise that Mrs. Dolores Stapleton Harris has been placed in the position of Permanent Secretary effective the 14th May 2018. Mrs. Dolores Stapleton Harris emerged as the top person as a result of her outstanding qualification and experience and performance in an interview in which some 8 persons or thereabout were shortlisted. She brings to the position 30 years of service in healthcare, having been a practicing nurse, and in health education, where she served as tutor, lecturer, and her last assignment before being transferred was that, I think, of vice president at the college. So she will bring a wealth of experience and knowledge to this job, and we wish her well. A question was also asked with respect to immigration data. The permanent secretary then was charged with the responsibility of collating the data, and yesterday he was able to provide the data as it relates to the period January to April 2018. He has advised that in terms of the issuance of what we call annual permits, 56 were issued, 11 to what was of interest to the media Hispanic community, 20 temporary residences were granted, 5 permanent, and 51 achieved residence through marriage, for a total of 132 residence status being approved for the period January to April 2013. In the classification of Hispanics, he advises that the Dominican Republic, Cubans, Colombians, Mexicans, Venezuelans, and Argentinians are subsumed under that classification. With respect to new entry visas and/or extension of stay, and for this he has given me data from January to May 2018, 305 visas were issued. 70 of them were to persons classified as Hispanics. 63 of that number related to nationals of the Dominican Republic. So 305 new entry visas and/or extensions of stay, that is for person already here and asks for some extension, 305 were approved. In relation to work permits, so there are different layers or different types of entry requirements and status as it relates to the immigrant population. Specifically, with respect to work permits, I'm advised that 246 work permits were issued for the period under consideration. Some of these, of course, were persons participating in very short-term assignments, such as Digicel, which is doing some significant work now, had required the entry of certain professional, technical, and other categories of workers, and those were facilitated for a short-term period. So 246 work permits have been issued so far. In closing, our Team Unity government is doing everything in our power to remain true to our mandate for good governance and prosperity for all. Our people are benefiting. Our country is the envy of the region. Everyone wants to come here. And having come, everyone wants to stay here. That is now what we have become, the magnet of the region. We are committed to being a government of inclusiveness, and one that pursues sound and sustainable opportunities for our people's advancement in terms of business development and entrepreneurship. And that is why we were very early off the clock in attempting to incentivize indigenous entrepreneurship. 50 million, the largest sum ever in the history of the country, set aside to assist local businesses in their endeavors. Job creation has been a success. The Social Security has reported that since Team Unity has been in office, the employment has been at its highest level ever. The number of contributors to the scheme has been at the largest level ever in the history of the country. And wages have been growing to the point where they are now nearing $1 billion in wages. We have seen a significant growth in the number of people who have moved from minimum wages into the higher levels of wage earning within the country. All these are success stories. We have seen the significant movement of people from what was PEP into now real jobs. And while all this is happening, the recalibration of the economy as people find new jobs in the private sector, we are still sustaining the highest level of employment in the country. We are giving our people then real opportunities for improvement. Our foreign direct investment capacity is being maintained. We are perhaps now one of the most attractive destinations for tourism. Look at what is happening in the cruise ship industry, which justified the construction of a second cruise pier, which is now on their way, in spite of and despite the efforts of the opposition to sabotage that project by writing to the entity, the CCC in Canada, asking them to avoid participation in that project. The country is still moving on. Yesterday in Keys, while I sauntered along the road to meet some people there, I observed the technical crew from Public Works with one of the parties who had been assigned jobs to do some of the curb works as part of the efforts of the government to resurface the entire island main road in a phased way. Not just the roads in the peninsula must be beautiful and nice, but the roads everywhere. And the young man from Kayard was pleased to answer the question and to say, by next Monday, he will have started. I'm advised he now has the mobilization oxygen, the Minister of Public Infrastructure would call it. I call it money. And that will now allow him to get started. And elsewhere, we are going to be seeing that level of development. Picture a country which in the short period of some 6 months of having one of the top hotels in luxury train in the Park Hyatt officially opened, bringing over 300 full-time jobs, 93% of them our local people from Gingerland, from Tabernacle, from throughout the length of Bent of St. Kitts and Nevis, now participated over there in real employment at the top of the wage payment scheme. We have on the ground now technicians paving the way for the launch of the Sixth Sense project. The design work is being put together. 2 young brothers from Deep Bay, the Williams brothers, have been earmarked to assist in doing some of the engineering work because we have insisted that local people must have a part in the growth and the development and the learning experiences that is taking place in our country. Our country is moving forward, and it needs our consistent efforts, industry, commitment, and faith to take the country to the next best level. For our part, my administration has never wavered in pursuing excellence on behalf of the country. And it is with a sense of great satisfaction that I commend the Cabinet and the senior officials within the government, in fact all the government employees, for their contribution to the peace, the buoyancy, and the prosperity that is taking place in our country. We have now become the model. When people look to the model of the small island states, look how we rank in relation to ICTs. We are top in the region. We are in the top 30 in the world. Who would have thought that the smallest country, the smallest democracy in the Western Hemisphere, St. Kitts and Nevis, would rank in the top 30 in the world? Who would have thought that when the people, the experts come to examine our performance and rule of law, the absence of corruption, that St. Kitts and Nevis would again lead? It is this good news that is confounding those who are attempting to destabilize the progress of the country and to bring harm to the reputation of this country. We remain focused as an administration on doing the people's work. We are busy bringing homes to our people, making land available at more affordable terms, expanding the number of participants in business and industry. The good work of the administration will continue. I want to pause now to allow the members of the media the opportunity, should there be any questions. But I want to thank Mr. Coyote, Sutton Captain, who I gather has been one of the key coordinators, at least from the defense side of it. And I gather our ACP of operations, Mr. James, has been at the police end of it in terms of collaboration for the trade winds. Over 300 persons coming in and would leave with a fantastic view of our country. And after that, we get into other things like the music festival. And after that, we get into over 200 plus persons coming in for Ansar. This is the hub. This is the mega of activity for the region at this time. Let me, in closing, extend congratulations to all those centenarians who are being honored this week. Yesterday, Senator Phipps and I had the privilege of visiting Mr. Edward Bailey in Sadlers. He's 102, and he's ready to go. He's standing, he's talking, he's promising to marry Senator Phipps. And all of those things he can say of his own volition. So we are happy for their vitality and happy to have people like Mr. Bailey who can provide guidance and support for us and the young people in particular as how they can live more healthy and longer lives.
Stay up to date with news, programs, and activities of the government with SKNIS. Like us on Facebook. Listen to us on SoundCloud. Follow us on Twitter. And watch our videos on YouTube. Connect with us today. SKNIS, St. Kitts and Nevis Information Service.